Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be looking at one of the most recently released DC TV shows, which is of course Stargirl. Stargirl follows Courtney Whitmore and her friends that form the new JSA as they fight the Injustice Society of America in the small town of Blue Valley. Last episode we covered the 6th episode, so put on your star-spangled attire and make sure you go and watch the 7th episode, as this list contains major spoilers for Stargirl, episode 7. Without further ado, I'm Jager of JL Oz, and this is 5 Easter eggs from Stargirl, Shiv, Part 1, that you may have missed. Despite this episode being called Shiv, we actually get a pretty strong focus on a few other characters in the series, one of which being Henry King Jr. Now in this episode and in previous episodes, we've been seeing Henry really deflated and really upset about his father's comatose state, which unbeknownst to him was caused by Courtney. And following this, we've seen Henry painfully go about realising his powers, and his powers taking sort of a more and more control as the series progresses. And in this episode, we see him at a test at school, and he uses his powers to hear the thoughts of his classmates to get the answers to the test.
Power of 3, so X is 17. 17.
It seems Henry's going to become Brainwave Jr. sooner than I thought, which is a very welcome surprise. Staying on the topic of the ISA and the ISA's kids, during this episode we saw a discussion between all the members of the ISA about the new JSA, after their recent encounter with Sportsmaster Tigress and the Gambler, which leads to a discussion about the children. They think, well, our kids go to the high school, they've got to be kids, so maybe they know something. Artemis, Henry Jr., Cameron, and Isaac all come up in this discussion, which leads to the Fiddler mentioning that Isaac is too sensitive to become a part of the ISA and join in with this evil doing.
Can't just come from nowhere, they have to come from somewhere.
No, I'm telling you, I think they were all just kids. They were kids. Except maybe that big robot.
Then we should bring our children into this. They could help us find them.
No, we agreed to keep our sons and daughters in the dark. My boy Isaac is much too sensitive for this kind of life.
You coddle him. That's your problem, not his.
Which leads to them talking about Brainiac, Brainwave, being in a coma, and that the Fiddler's husband, Isaac Bowen Sr., could have woken Brainwave up, which is a bit of a dig to Principal Bowen. On this point, I'll talk about the ISA because I'm really scared that they're going to do the same thing they did with the JSA in this series, and at the end of the season, completely take out the ISA, like completely take out the ISA, and I'm worried that this is going to be bad because what I've mentioned this before. That ISA of Icicle, Shade, the Fiddler, Sportsmaster Tigress, the Gambler, and the Wizard, even though the Wizard's dead now, they managed to take out the Flash, Sandman, Green Lantern, Johnny Thunder and his Thunderbolt, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, all of the top, like, most powerful people, especially Dr. Fate, and I've made this point, he is very difficult to kill. And they managed to take out them. Now, I am worried that this new team, this crack team of Hourman, the new Dr. Midnight, the new Hourman, the new Stargirl, the new Wildcat, and soon to be the new Green Lantern and new Johnny Thunder, are going to just take out the ISA. And I think that's going to be bad. I think that's going to be wrong. Because if all of those massive players in the comics and all of those massive players in this season couldn't beat the ISA, and these kids do, it's going to be really, really unconvincing. So, hopefully they do the right thing. Hopefully the ISA, or the new JSA, starts to really train, get some new members. Hopefully we get to see a new Green Lantern, and more importantly, a new Dr. Fate. And hopefully it'll be a good battle, but hopefully, and we can only hope, that they're not going to just get taken out in the season finale, and it's all going to work out beautifully for our heroes. But we'll have to wait and see. Now at number 3 on our list, we have a little bit of speculation about where the show is going to take a specific character. Now, when Courtney took the pink pen from the JSA hall, we knew we were gonna get a new Johnny Thunder. And as I've mentioned, that the Thunderbolt is a really powerful entity, a being in the DC universe. So in the first few episodes, we got sort of an introduction to a few reoccurring characters at Blue Valley High. Henry King Jr., Joey Zarek, unfortunately he's dead, Cameron Marquand, Cindy Berman, and of course Cindy Berman's second in command, the second mean girl sort of, although Jenny Williams, although Jenny's a bit nicer than Cindy. Now, Mike Dugan, in earlier episodes, mentioned that he was going to go over to his friend Jakeem's house. The only Jakeem we know in the DC universe is Jakeem Thunder, Jakeem Williams. Now, Jakeem Williams obviously was the new Jakeem Thunder, Johnny Thunder, who took over the role from Johnny took over the role of Johnny Thunder. So, with this sort of revelation, we can sort of relate Jakeem and Jenny together. It makes sense. So, this is sort of where the speculation comes into play. There's two opportunities for the Thunder, and in this episode, we saw Jenny basically disassociate with Cindy and finally, do the right thing by herself and say, no, Cindy, you're really, she's mean to Jenny. And Jenny seems really nice. So we can due to Stargirl, and I've mentioned this, Stargirl's usually recruiting a bunch of people from the high school to become new members of the JSA. So it seems more likely now Jenny will become the new Johnny Thunder. Jenny Thunder, Johnny Thunder, sort of sounds the same. And Jakeem's just a little reference to the actual character. But we'll have to wait and see. Either way, I'm fine. I don't really care. As long as they have a really cool incarnation of the Thunderbolt's first appearance, I'm happy. But that's a little bit of speculation in regards to the character or the follow-up to Johnny Thunder. Now, of course, I couldn't talk about an episode called Shiv without talking about Shiv. And I have a few points to make here. We know that through the comics, Shiv's Courtney or Stargirl's arch nemesis, and Shiv's Dragon King's daughter. In this episode, we sort of got to focus a little bit of backstory, a lot of backstory actually, to the character of Cindy Berman in this TV show. We know Cindy is an awful person. We can sort of gather that. And when she arrives home, we sort of get an introduction as to what happens when she arrives home. First of all, Sydney's stepmother is absolutely terrified of her. We sort of got that vibe from the open house in earlier episodes, but not to this extent. I don't know what the deal is with that. We'll find out later on, possibly in Shiv Part 2, but Cindy's stepmom is terrified of her. Will do anything to try and avoid angering her father, which is, of course, Dragon King. Now, we find out when Cindy goes down to her father's hideout, I guess, Dragon King's hideout, we actually find out some really interesting information about Cindy. Now, Cindy's only purpose at that school, not really at that school, in regards to being in a couple with Henry Jr., is as a failsafe for the ISA. So she's there to scout out to try and see whether she shares her father's powers, his father's powers, which is very interesting. And I think it makes a lot of sense as to why Cindy was so awful to Yolanda and why she was so hell-bent on getting Henry Jr. to gravitate towards her and not Yolanda, which really gives a lot of background to why she completely ruined Yolanda's life, and not excusing it, but gives a reason as to why she'd be so awful. We know she's awful, but we haven't really seen her that awful. So basically her only purpose with Henry Jr. is to scope and see whether he shares his father's powers. So that's interesting. Later on in the episode, we see that Cindy is pissed off with her dad and she wants to be a part of the ISA. And she discovers that Stargirl's roaming around, so she puts on the Shiv costume that we know and love from the comics, and she goes out, she gets into a massive fight with Stargirl. During this fight, Courtney literally just points the staff at her and blasts her face, and her face is melted off. And I was like, oh my god. I haven't read any of the Stars and Stripes comics, I just haven't gotten around to it. I've got way too many comics to read at the moment. Maybe we can put that into another video or something, but I didn't know this was a thing. I thought her face was just going to be absolutely blown off for the rest of the thing, and like, I don't know how they were going to cover up. It was just basically thoughts running in my mind for that split second. We then see her entire face heal. She's got like a Deadpool, faster than Deadpool healing factor. And we find out, sort of in a hint, from Dragon King earlier, that she's an experiment. I don't know whether she's a real girl, or whether she's like an organic thing, or whether she's be genetically mutated like her dad is. I don't know, but it's cool. And the last bit of information I want to touch on here is, I wonder, I'll touch on another bit later, but I wonder whether she recognised, or whether she, because when you get knocked out and stuff and you're after a fight, I've never done this, so I don't know whether you're listening to a disgruntled stepfather going, Courtney, Courtney. I wonder whether she heard Courtney, and whether she went and told Dragon King that in fact Stargirl is Courtney Whitmore, which will make it interesting because Icicle and Barbara are on a business, actually, I'm calling it right now. Episode hasn't released. I'm recording this video on the 1st of June. Episode hasn't released. I'm calling it right now. Cindy knows that Courtney is Stargirl. Dragon King's going to call Icicle, tell her that it's Courtney. Icicle's going to realise that Barbara is her mother, and shit's going to hit the fan. That's my prediction. Moving on to number 1. And of course, at number 1, we all knew this was going to happen. The Shining Knight has been confirmed as Janitor Justin. Now, I have refrained from speculating on this channel about Janitor Justin, as I have had so many theories as to who he was, and each of them were plausible. And I'm just waiting for more info, and now I finally got it. I thought he was the Flash who vibrated his molecules and went forward in time because we didn't see his body. Alan Scott is Alan Scott in the comics, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure he like infiltrated the ISA or something like that. Courtney's dad, you know, all these people. And of course, now we know it's the Shining Knight. And if you're not convinced, listen to the way he talks.
Here you go.
Thank you, my lady.
The calendar of the White Horse, which of course he rides on, you know, Justice League Unlimited, all those shows, he's got a white horse. And of course, the giant sword. That's a dead giveaway that it's a medieval character, and what other medieval character that's related to Stargirl and all of those? Of course, the Shining Knight. Now, I loved his character in this episode when he saved Courtney from Shiv. That's the point, sorry. That's the point I didn't bring up in the 2. The way that fight ended, Shiv was about to kill Courtney, I'm pretty sure. And Shining Knight knocks Cindy out. So knocks her out of the fight, basically. Yeah, so I loved how he just kicked Shiv's ass. Now, I found it very interesting that at the end of this fight, you know, Cindy runs off and Pat's bloody on a not thinking at all, yelling out, Courtney, Courtney! And I'll call him this. I'll call him Shining Knight. And Shining Knight's standing there in the corner, and he's like, "That's Stripesy." And it's like, wow, he recognised Pat in his civilian clothes. Now, I would love to see more of the Shining Knight in later episodes, and it has been confirmed that there will be an episode called The Shining Knight, so we will see him. But what I really hope is that we see the other 7 Soldiers of Victory. As in the comics, Stripesy and the Star-Spangled Kid, or Starman in this universe, were members alongside the Shining Knight, which is probably why he recognises Pat. Whether he recognises Pat from the JSA or whether he has a connection to the JSA, that was a nod to the 7 Soldiers of Victory, which is a pretty cool team, actually. I'd love to see Vigilante as well, who was a member of the 7 Soldiers of Victory, and he's one of my favourite characters in DC. I have no idea why. He's literally in nothing. Like, I've not read any of his comics. I think I saw him in Batman the Brave and Bold, and I just loved him. So, he's one of my favourite characters. So I'd love to see him, and I'd love to see the Seven Soldiers of Victory, and the Shining Knight's awesome, and I'm very excited. Very excited. This episode was great. And that is our list. A bit longer this time, I know, but I think they're going to get longer as they go, get more episodes, because these are just getting better and better. Let me know in the comments if I missed any of your favourite Easter eggs from the 7th episode of Stargirl. Stay tuned for more episodes of Easter eggs, and make sure you like and subscribe to get your weekly dose of DC, from top 10 list to episodely Stargirl Easter egg videos. Hit the bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. Make sure to check out my latest videos, which will be right in the end card. Subscribe to Glider Guy and Icy Shield 25, which will be in the top right of your screen. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.